Hey, greetings, Marbleheads, and all you web surfers. I'm Vinny. Welcome to Living for All the Marbles. This is actually week 17 out of 857. And if you want to know what that's about, at the end of this video, I'll have pinned up there the introductory video that tells you what this is about in some level of detail. But we're covering the week from the 10th through the 16th of November 21. And, a question I have for you is, I don't know how much exposure many of you have to the military, but do you know how many people out of our U.S. population actually serve? Well, because this is the week of the Marine Corps birthday and also Veterans Day, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But first, I want to let you know that I am delighted that you're here. This is a journey of accountability for my vision for my life, in that I live the vision I've set out. It's also for me to provide an example and a legacy for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren so they know my thoughts on life. And I'm hoping that it will also inspire some of you to live the life that you want to live, to determine what it is and to live it. So if that's something you're interested in, I would love for you to join us on a regular basis. I do this every week at least. And I would encourage you to like and share and ring the bell, hit the subscribe button, and whatever you can do to support the channel, I'd really appreciate that. As I said, this is actually week 17. And so we're going to take a marble out of the bright future and drop it in the well-lived past. And let's talk. So this is the U.S. Marine Corps birthday, the 10th of November. Started in 1775 in Tun's Tavern in Philadelphia. And, the interesting thing about what Captain Samuel Nicholas started on that day when he started recruiting was 246 years later, those in the Corps are still honorably serving as the nation's 911 force and just stand-up warriors. So I'm very proud to be a part of that. Two of my sons, Josh and James, are part of that. My brother-in-law, Deke, was part of that, and his son, Derek, is on active duty now. So we decided that we wanted to get together, and I'm sorry I didn't take a video of it, but I was actually out when we did this, is that, some are in the Northeast, some are in the Mid-Atlantic. My nephew's down south in Florida going to school. So the idea is that we wanted to get together, so we did kind of a Zoom thing and toasted our Corps, which is kind of a common tradition for us to celebrate that every year. So happy 246th birthday to the United States Marine Corps, and for all of you who have earned the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, all of my brothers and sisters, I hope you had a great time. This week we went to something new, a theater in the round, and I'll put a little picture in right here, or somewhere around here, that talks about, that shows you the actual program from the show. And it was interesting because I've never been in a show where I had to lift my feet to get out of the way of the people who were actually acting in the play. Theater in the Round's a different experience from a regular theater. I've been to like the Rockette show and the Christmas show and the Radio City Music Hall and a number of other things. Just not the same when they're that close, not using a mic. And this was the local Colonial Players in Annapolis. So it was actually a good show, and I encourage you, if you've never done something like that, to do it. It was kind of fun. Now, this week's adult beverage was an anisette cocktail. Now, I published something on the Facebook page that talked a little bit about it, and I also went to a whiskey tasting at my buddy Andy's, and they're the ones that actually made me the anisette cocktail, his son Mac. So the idea here is they took 138 proof absinthe, and they put it in a rock glass, 1 ounce of it, and then they took some sugar cubes and soaked them for about a minute in the absinthe, and then put the sugar cubes on a slotted spoon or something over the top of the glass, and then set it on fire. And then once it burned out, they took a dropper with 2 ounces of water and just dropped on it until they melted it all into the glass. And then after that, they put a frother, one of those electric frothers for coffee. They put the frother in there and they mixed it up a little bit, added a handful of ice, and then kind of agitated it until it became cloudy, or milky, and then it was ready to drink. It was delicious. If you like those type of licorice, like black licorice, man, it was tremendous. And I'll also put some pictures in and maybe a little video of probably at the end of the actual tasting that Andy had at his house. It was really interesting. For those who've never been to one of those, you really don't drink that much alcohol. I mean, obviously you could, but the idea is to have enough that you can taste, and then to be able to talk about it and learn about it, and then cleanse your palate. In our case, we just sniffed coffee pods to clean out the nose, and then drank a little water, and then you just try the next one. Some of them were barrel strength, or like 125 proof, and some of them were less. But it's a really interesting experience, and if you can get to do something like that with someone who's very knowledgeable, it's a pretty phenomenal thing to do. Also want to wish this week a happy birthday to Julia. Julia is our youngest grandchild, and she just turned 2. She's a little doll, so happy birthday, Julia. All right, I want to talk a little bit about Veterans Day, because obviously, it was this week, and I don't know if you know it or not, but anytime on active duty, less than 1% of the population in all of our armed services are actually serving on active duty. So think about that, 1% bearing the weight for an entire nation. And for those of you who may also not be aware, less than 20% of all of the veterans, okay, I should say they equal less than 20% of the entire U.S. population. So in all the wars, we still got 1 or 2 around from World War II, and of course Korea and Vietnam, and many other skirmishes and incidents in Mogadishu, Somalia, and of course Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as many other skirmishes and things around the world that our people have been involved in. Less than 20% of our population are veterans of our armed forces. So it's not a thing of whether you serve or whether you don't serve. That's a personal choice, that you have to make yourself. But if you don't serve, I would encourage you to appreciate those people who wrote a check for anything up to and including their lives, to ensure that, in their minds, the people on their left and right, and those behind them that they love at home, and the nation they want to preserve, that's what they're fighting for. It was interesting that a quote that's often attributed to Aldous Huxley or Churchill, but was actually said by a guy named Richard, I wrote it down, Grenser, and he was trying to express a thought that Aldous Huxley had put out there. And the quote is this: "People sleep peaceably in their beds at night because rough men stand ready to do violence on their behalf." And if you're one of those people who sleep peaceably, then I would encourage you to take a time on Veterans Day to just remember those who have served, and on Memorial Day for those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. I know that I and many that I know, or almost everybody I know, they don't consider themselves a hero for serving, because hero is a word that we reserve for people who really deserve it. But all those people did, write a check, and so you don't have to fawn over them. You don't have to call them heroes, but just acknowledge that they were willing to do that, for the rest of us. Kyle Carpenter, oftentimes, people say thank you for your service, and you're kind of like, okay, you're welcome. And it's interesting, Kyle Carpenter was a young man who won the Medal of Honor. He was a Lance Corporal at the time, jumped on a grenade to save his fellow Marines, and suffered terribly for it. And, that suffering has caused a reflection that makes me just notice that this young man is mature beyond his years and humble. And, he said that when he thought about it, the way he responds now to people who say thank you for your service is, you're worth it. When you think about that, and the fact that those who served have said, look, I'm willing to give everything, including my life, you really are all saying, you're worth it. You're worth whatever I have to go through to preserve you being able to live the life you want to live, to preserve, as some people have called it, this great experiment in representative government that we're running. So just something to think about.
has a different flavor profile, and then there's another maker, and that's where you sort of find it is, I personally a lot of people like Hennessy, or, and there are a few who are
about. I want you to know that you guys being with me is something that I appreciate very much, and I want to remind you always to live intentionally and finish strong. I'll see you next week.